Bren Gun, usually called simply the Bren, was a series of light machine guns adopted by Britain in the 1930s and used in various roles until 1992. While best known for its role as the British and Commonwealth Forces' primary infantry light machine gun in World War II, it was also used in the Korean War and saw service throughout the latter half of the 20th century, including the 1982 Falklands War. Although fitted with a bipod, it could also be mounted on a tripod or vehicle-mounted. The Bren was a modified version of Czechoslovak-designed light machine guns, the Zbrojovka-26 and its descendants, which British Army officials had tested during a firearms service competition in the 1930s. The later Bren featured a distinctive top-mounted curved box magazine, conical flash hider and quick-change barrel. The name Bren was derived from Brno, Moravia, the Czechoslovak city where the Zbrojovka-26 was originally designed, and Enfield, site of the British Royal Small Arms Factory. The original and main designer was Václav Holek, a talented gun inventor and design engineer. In the 1950s many Brens were rebarreled to accept the 7.62A, 51mm NATO cartridge and modified to feed from the magazine for the L1 rifle as the L4 light machine gun. It was replaced in the British Army as the Section LMG by the L7 general-purpose machine gun, a heavier belt-fed weapon. This was in turn supplemented in the 1980s by the L86 light support weapon firing the 5.56A, 45mm NATO round, leaving the Bren in use only as a pintle mount on some vehicles. The Bren is still sold by Indian ordnance factories as the gun, machine 7.62mm 1B. Development. During the early 1900s, the British Army subjected several designs of light machine gun to competitive trials. Among the weapons that were submitted for the trials were the Madsen, Browning automatic rifle, the Neuhaus NKE-7 and the Vickers Berthier. The Vickers Berthier was later adopted by the Indian Army and also saw extensive service in World War II. Following these trials, the British Army adopted the Czechoslovak Zbrojovka-26 light machine gun manufactured in Brno in 1935, although a slightly modified model, the Zbrojovka-27, rather than the Zbrojovka-26 had actually been submitted for the trials. A license to manufacture was sought, and the Czech design was modified to British requirements. The major changes were in the magazine and barrel. The magazine was curved in order to feed the rimmed .303 British cartridge, a change from the various rimless Mauser design cartridges such as the 7.92mm Mauser round previously used by Czech designs. These modifications were categorized in various numbered designations, Zbrojovka 27, Zbrojovka 30, Zbrojovka 32, and finally the Zbrojovka 33, which became the Bren. The Bren was a gas-operated weapon, which used the same .303 ammunition as the standard British rifle, the Lee Enfield, firing at a rate of between 480 and 540 rounds per minute, depending on the model. Propellant gas is vented from a port towards the muzzle end of the barrel through a regulator with 4 quick adjustment apertures of different sizes, intended to tailor the gas volume to different ambient temperatures. The vented gas drove a piston which in turn actuated the breech block. Each gun came with a spare barrel that could be quickly changed when the barrel became hot during sustained fire, though later guns featured a chrome-lined barrel which reduced the need for a spare. To change barrels, the release catch in front of the magazine was rotated to unlock the barrel. The carrying handle above the barrel was used to grip and remove the hot barrel without risk of burning the hands. The Bren was magazine-fed, which slowed its rate of fire and required more frequent reloading than British belt-fed machine guns such as the larger .303 Vickers machine gun. However, the slower rate of fire prevented more rapid overheating of the Bren's air-cooled barrel, and the Bren was much lighter than belt-fed machine guns which typically had cooling jackets, often liquid-filled. The magazines also prevented the ammunition from getting dirty, which was more of a problem with the Vickers with its 250-round canvas belts. Service. Second World War. In the British and Commonwealth armies, the Bren was generally issued on a scale of 1 per rifle section, with 3 rifle sections in each platoon. A further 3 Bren guns were issued to the admin platoon of each rifle company. An infantry battalion also had a carrier platoon, equipped with universal carriers, most of which carried Bren guns. Parachute battalions from 1944 had an extra Bren in the AT platoon. The 66-man assault troop of British commandos had a nominal establishment of 4 Bren guns. Realizing the need for additional section-level firepower, the British Army endeavoured to issue the Bren in great numbers, with a stated goal of 1 Bren to every 4 private soldiers. The Bren was operated by a 2-man crew, sometimes commanded by a lance corporal as an infantry section's gun group, the remainder of the section forming the rifle group. The gunner or number 1 carried and fired the Bren, and a loader or number 2 carried extra magazines, a spare barrel and a tool kit. Number 2 helped reload the gun and replace the barrel when it overheated, and spotted targets for number 1. Generally, the Bren was fired from the prone position using the attached bipod. On occasion, a Bren gunner would use his weapon on the move supported by a sling, much like an automatic rifle, and from standing or kneeling positions. Using the sling, Australian soldiers regularly fired the Bren from the hip, for instance in the marching fire tactic, a form of suppressive fire moving forward in assault. A Victoria Cross was awarded to Private Bruce Kingsbury for such use at Zbrojovka, New Guinea in 1942, during the Australians' fighting retreat from Kokoda. Each British soldier's equipment normally included 2 magazines for his section's Bren gun. The large ammunition pouches on the 1937 pattern Webb equipment were designed around the Bren magazine. Every soldier would be trained to fire the Bren in case of an emergency, though these soldiers did not receive a Bren proficiency badge. The Bren had an effective range of around 600 yards when fired from a prone position with a bipod. Initial versions of the weapon were sometimes considered too accurate because the cone or pattern of fire was extremely concentrated. Soldiers often expressed a preference for worn-out barrels in order to spread the cone of fire and increase suppressive effects. Later versions of the Bren addressed this issue by providing a wider cone of fire. For a light machine gun of the interwar and early World War II era, the Bren was about average in weight. On long marches in non-operational areas it was often partially disassembled and its parts were carried by 2 soldiers. The top-mounted magazine vibrated and moved during fire, making the weapon more visible in combat, and many Bren gunners used paint or improvised canvas covers to disguise the prominent magazine. The 30-round magazine was in practice usually filled with 27 or 28 rounds to prevent jams and avoid wearing out the magazine's spring. Care needed to be taken when loading the magazine to ensure that each round went ahead of the previous round, so that the .303 cartridge rims did not overlap the wrong way, which would cause a jam. In general, the Bren was considered a reliable and effective light machine gun, though in North Africa it was reported to jam regularly unless kept very clean and free of sand or dirt. It was popular with British troops, who respected the Bren for its reliability and combat effectiveness. The quality of the materials used would generally ensure minimal jamming. When the gun did jam through fouling caused by prolonged firing, the operator could adjust the 4-position gas regulator to feed more gas to the piston, increasing the power to operate the mechanism. The barrel needed to be unlocked and slid forward slightly to allow the regulator to be turned. It was even so that all problems with the Bren could simply be cleared by hitting the gun, turning the regulator, or doing both. A complicated tripod mount was available to allow the Bren to be used as an indirect fire weapon, but this was rarely used in the field. The Bren was also used on many vehicles, including on universal carriers, to which it gave the alternative name Bren gun carrier, and on tanks and armored cars. However, it could not be used as a coaxial weapon on tanks, as the magazine restricted its depression and was awkward to handle in confined spaces, and it was therefore used on a pintle mount only. The Bren was also employed in the anti-aircraft role. A tall tripod was available to allow high-angle fire. There were also several designs of less portable mountings, including the gallows and motley mounts. A 100-round Pan magazine was available for the Bren for use in the anti-aircraft role. The Bren's direct ancestor, the Czechoslovak Zbrojovka 26, was also used in World War II by German and Romanian forces, including units of the Waffen-SS. Many 7.92mm ZB light machine guns were shipped to China, where they were employed first against the Japanese in World War II, and later against UN forces in Korea, including British and Commonwealth units. Some ex-Chinese Czech ZB weapons were also in use in the early stages of the Vietnam War. Production of a 7.92mm round model for the Far East was carried out by Ingalls of Canada. The Bren was also delivered to the Soviet Union as part of the Lend-Lease program. Post-war, the British Army, and the armies of various countries of the Commonwealth, used the Bren in the Korean War, the Malayan Emergency, the Mau Mau Uprising and the Indonesia-Euro-Malaysia confrontation, where it was preferred to its replacement, the Beltware GPMG, on account of its lighter weight. During the Falklands War in 1982, 40 Commando Royal Marines carried 1 LMG and 1 GPMG per section. When the British Army adopted the 7.62mm NATO cartridge, the Bren was redesigned to 7.62mm caliber, fitted with a new bolt, barrel and magazine. It was redesignated as the L4 light machine gun and remained in British Army service into the 1990s. A slotted flash hider similar to that of the contemporary L1 rifle and L7 general-purpose machine gun replaced the conical flash hider. The change from a rim to rimless cartridge and nearly straight magazine improved feeding considerably, and allowed use of 20-round magazines from the 7.62mm L1A1 self-loading rifle. The 30-round magazine from the L4 also fitted the L1A1 rifle, but the magazine spring was not always strong enough to provide enough upward pressure to feed rounds correctly, this being remedied by stretching the magazine springs. Completion of the move to a 5.56mm NATO cartridge led to Army removing the Bren L4 from the list of approved weapons and then withdrawing it from service. The fact that Bren guns had remained in service for so many years with so many different countries in so many wars says much about the quality of the weapon's design. The Mark III Bren remained in limited use with the Army Reserve of the Irish Defence Forces until 2006, when the 7.62mm GPMG replaced it. The Bren was popular with the soldiers who fired it as it was light and durable, and had a reputation for accuracy. The most notable use of the Bren by Irish forces was in the Congo crisis during the 1960s, when the Bren was the regular Army's standard section automatic weapon. Variants, Mark I, from September 1937. The original Bren based on the Czechoslovak gun. Features, drum pattern rear aperture sight, butt strap for use over the shoulder when firing, rear grip under butt, telescoping bipod, folding cocking handle, Mark II, introduced 1941. A simpler version of the Mk1. Produced by Ingalls of Canada and the Monotype Group through a number of component manufacturing factories. Sometimes known as the garage hands model. Features, folding leaf rear sight, butt strap deleted, rear grip deleted, fixed height bipod, fixed cocking handle. The Bren Mk2 was much simplified in the body, which although still being milled from a solid billet of steel, required significantly fewer milling operations than the Mk1 which gave it a much cleaner appearance. The bipod was simplified in design as well as not having extending legs. Most Mk2 bipods resembled a simple A-frame and were more soldier-proof. The Mk2 also featured a slightly higher rate of fire than the Mk1. The woodwork on the Mk2 was simplified by being less ornate and ergonomic, which sped up the manufacturing process. The barrel was also simplified by means of an on-stepped removable flash hider and in some cases, a barrel forend that was matte instead of highly polished. The buffered butt plate of the Mk1 was omitted and replaced with a sheet metal butt plate. Mark III, a shorter and lighter Bren made by Enfield from 1944 for the war in the East and for airborne forces. This was a conversion of the Mk1 whose main distinguishing feature was a shorter barrel. Mark IV, as with the Mk3 but this was a conversion of a Mk2. L4. A conversion of the Bren to 7.62mm NATO from 1958. Indian Army variants may be new build, not conversions. L4 Brens can easily be identified by their different magazine. The British issue L4 magazine is of 30-round capacity and has a slight curve. The L4 magazine was interchangeable with the L1A1 SLR magazine, so the L4 Bren also can be seen fitted with straight 20-round magazines from the SLR or with the straight 30-round magazine from the Australian L2A1 or Canadian C2A1 heavy barrel SLR. The flash suppressor was changed from the cone type of .303 variants to a slotted type similar in appearance to that used on the SLR and L7 GPMG. All L4s are chambered for 7.62A, 51mm NATO rimless ammunition. Taden gun. The Taden gun was a development of the Bren to use with the .280 British intermediate round proposed to replace the .303 in British service. The Taden was belt-fed with spade grips and would have replaced both the Bren and the Vickers machine gun. Although reliable, it was not accepted due to the US-driven standardization within NATO on the larger 7.62x51 NATO round. Semi-automatic Bren guns. Many nations' militaries have disposed of their Bren guns as surplus to their needs. Surplus Brens have been imported to the United States for sale to collectors, but due to U.S. gun laws restricting the importation of automatic weapons, such guns must be legally destroyed by cutting up the receivers. A number of U.S. gunsmiths have manufactured new semi-automatic Brens by welding the pieces of destroyed receivers back together, with modifications to prevent the use of full automatic parts, and fitting new fire control components capable of only semi-automatic fire. The balance of the parts are surplus Bren parts. Such semi-automatic machine guns are legally considered rifles under U.S. federal law and the laws of most states. Twin-barrel variant. A twin-barrel variant of the Bren was manufactured in China during the 1950s from ZB-26 light machine guns. It came with side-by-side barrels and was chambered in the 7.62x39 and round fed from AK-47 magazines. The only known example can be seen at the Tunshome Militia Museum. World War II production. RSAF Enfield, UK, 400 per month. 1943, 1,000 per week. John Ingalls and Company, Canada. A contract was signed with the British and Canadian governments in March 1938 to supply 5,000 Bren machine guns to Great Britain and 7,000 Bren machine guns to Canada. Both countries shared the capital costs of bringing in this new production facility. Production started in 1940, and by 1943 Ingalls was producing 60% of the world output of Bren machine guns. Long Branch, Toronto, Canada. Ishapur, India. Lithgow Small Arms Factory, Australia. Users: A Australia, during World War II and Korean War. A Bangladesh, a Barbados, a Belize, Botswana, Bulgaria, during World War II. A Canada, during World War II and Korean War. People's Republic of China, during the Chinese Civil War. A Republic of China, Chinese National Revolutionary Army of Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek of the Republic of China during the Second Sino-Japanese War and the Chinese Civil War. Democratic Republic of Congo, Cyprus, a Free France, used by the Free French Forces. Gambia, Ghana, a Greece, a Guyana, a India, manufactured by the Ordnance Factories Board, an island, Irish Defence Forces, replaced by the FN MAG in 1960s, used by the Reserve Defence Forces, until 2006. Israel, during its War of Independence and for some time thereafter. Italy, airdropped to partisans and also issued to the Italian co-belligerent army in the latter part of WWII. Also used by the Italian police in the 7.62 caliber. A Jamaica, still used by the Jamaica Combined Cadet Force, Kenya, Lesotho, a Luxembourg, Malaysia, General Operations Force of the Royal Malaysian Police. A Mauritius, AA Nepal, a Netherlands, the Netherlands Royal Army during World War II and thereafter until 1964, the Netherlands Royal Army Reserve Corps from 1948 until 1989 and the Royal Netherlands Air Force from 1945 until 1964. North Korea, used captured examples, a New Zealand, WW2 and L4 post-war, a Poland, used by the Polish underground state, armored and partisans units during World War II. Rhodesia, a Seychelles, a Union of South Africa, Sri Lanka Army, Suriname, Swaziland, a Thailand, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda, a United Kingdom, British and Commonwealth forces, and cadet forces until the introduction of the L-98 cadet rifle, a Yugoslavia, Yugoslavchtniks during World War II. Some remained in stockpiles until Balkan Wars of 90s, a Zimbabwe, Gallery of Images. See also, Taden gun, Charlton automatic rifle, Beazle, Sterling 7.62, Kucher Model K1, FM 24/29 light machine gun, Type 96 light machine gun, Type 99 light machine gun, DP-28, M1918 Browning automatic rifle, Mendoza Room 2, Holt automatic rifle, Veronica Foster, also known as the Bren Gun Girl, ZB-530, universal carrier, Vickers Berthier, Vickers K machine gun. Notes. References: Dunlap, Roy F. Ordnance went up front. The Samworth Presser, George, John. Shots fired in anger. The Samworth Presser, external links, The Light Machine Gun, Photogalerie of BRENMK. Photo of L4 Bren gun in use with Nepalese Army, circa 2006, twin-barrel Bren LMG, modern firearms.